My online testicular digital netizens, let me tell you something. This right here. This is what we call the biggest fumble of the decade, folks. A total disaster, a catastrophe. And who do we have to thank? None other than Joe Budden, the self-proclaimed podcast king, the emotional mastermind, the guy who fumbles bags like it's an Olympic sport. You had Charleston White booked. And then what happened?
Your favorites, Dr. Umar, Joe Budden.
Yeah. Joe Budden had booked me, but then I made some comments about Cassie and Diddy was getting high, freaking fighting like most people do in the ghetto. He didn't want to interview me after that.
He took that in the positive.
Well, I say, if I got $1 billion, you can't tell me what I can do with I've been doing it for 12 years. We like to get high, fight. Yeah, no matter how extreme y'all think the fighting is. We see it all the time in the ghetto with our uncles and our aunties starting out getting drunk. Fight on the weekend. So Joe Budden pulled me from that podcast. But yeah, I seen a Dr. Umar Johnson and Joe Budden.
Yeah, man, we gotta get Dr. Umar on this pod. Like it was highly requested, Dr. Umar and B Hen, and then at the top of that was you two together, man. I'm happy we can make this happen for sure, man.
Love. Dr. Umar liked the bop too. Dr. Umar don't like the bop. Yeah, man. Yeah, them hoes told on him about 4 or 5 years ago.
Damn. Yeah, the Pan-Africans are snitching on my man.
That's what's holding up the school being built.
Yeah, man.
So the school ain't being built because he buying. Oh no, we not gonna do that. The education budget ain't going to the Wisconsin.
Shit, that's part of the budget. That's part of the budget. Why you think nigga ain't got no wife?
Damn, see, no, man, think about that.
Man, that's part of the budget. Damn, that shit. When the
man, that's school built, man. I'm coming.
Oh, he said some things about Cassie and Diddy, said the quiet part out loud, and suddenly the invite is gone. Just like that. Poof. Like a ghost in the night. Like Joe's rap career. Sad. Now, Charleston White is not a man who minces words. He says what he says, and he means what he means. And let's be honest, folks, the man was spitting. But no, Joe Budden, Mr. Feelings himself, couldn't handle it. He got shook. And this is the guy who talks about freedom of speech, about being unfiltered. Come on now, be for real. It's almost like he's allergic to consistency. But let me tell you what it really is. Joe Budden is a man who plays it safe, a man who picks and chooses when he wants to be controversial. 1 minute, he's the fearless industry critic. The next, he's running scared, canceling interviews because someone told too much truth. We don't respect it. And don't even get me started on Dr. Umar Johnson. This man has been building a school longer than the pyramids took to go up, and we still ain't seen a single classroom. Charleston White called it out, and what happened? People got mad. Oh, he's hating. Oh, he's tearing down a black man. No, he's asking the questions y'all are too scared to ask. Where's the school, Umar? Where's the school? Because at this point, it's looking like Hogwarts. It only exists in theory. But instead of answering, instead of transparency, what do we get? A bunch of excuses and some more requests for donations. Classic. Now, let's take a moment to address the magnificent, the indomitable, the utterly unpredictable force that is Charleston White. A man who has built a career off the fine art of being unfiltered, raw, and hilarious. He is like a political cartoon come to life, a one-man wrecking crew that specializes in torching hypocrisy wherever it hides. And yet, despite all his bold talk, let us not forget, he's got his own track record of controversy longer than a CVS receipt. Charleston White is the type of guy who will say the most outlandish thing possible and then turn around and tell you he's joking. He's had beef with rappers, activists, and just about anyone who has the misfortune of breathing in his general vicinity. This man has insulted entire generations, made wild claims about community work, and let's not forget that one time he went viral for saying he calls the police on people just for fun. I mean, who does that? If the petty Olympics were real, Charleston White would be Michael Phelps out there breaking records. But here's the thing, for all his antics, for all his controversies, Charleston White is one of the only people willing to say what others won't. He is a professional chaos agent, and like it or not, he makes people think. And that's exactly why Joe Budden ducked him. Because Charleston was gonna bring that same energy straight to Joe's couch, and Joe wasn't ready for that smoke. Joe Budden loves to talk about being an independent voice, about being for the culture, but when it was time to sit across from a man who wasn't going to play the industry game, he folded like fresh laundry. It's a pattern, folks. He wants to be the bold truth-teller until the truth gets too inconvenient. But hey, this is the same Joe Budden who has burned more bridges than a medieval siege. This is the same Joe who fell out with Complex, Everyday Struggle, Slaughterhouse, Rory and Mal, and now Charleston White. At this point, it's not the industry, Joe, it's you. And let's bring it back to Dr. Umar, because I cannot stress enough how absurd this whole school saga is. The man is out here collecting money like he's running the world's slowest Kickstarter. Every year it's the same speech. We just need a little more support. Support, support. We need to start seeing some results, brother. At this point, Hogwarts might get a real campus before Umar Johnson does. And don't get me wrong, the man can give a speech. Oh, he can talk a room into a frenzy. But words don't build schools. Money does. Action does. And so far, all we've seen is a lot of talking and not a whole lot of action. Now, let's talk about Charleston White's political shift. There was a time when he was an activist, speaking about street reform and second chances. But over time, he has found himself aligning more and more with conservative talking points. He rails against the same hip-hop culture he once lived in, calling out rappers for glorifying violence while actively collaborating with law enforcement to take down gang activity. Some call it betrayal. He calls it saving the community. Charleston White often aligns himself with figures in the conservative space who champion personal responsibility and strong policing. He sees the glorification of criminality in hip-hop as a disease and believes harsh consequences are necessary for change. In many ways, his rhetoric mirrors that of right-wing black commentators like Candace Owens, Jason Whitlock, and Jesse Lee Peterson. Figures who are often accused of Uncle Tom behavior by the very community they claim to want to uplift. His embrace of conservative ideology isn't just about attacking hip-hop. It's a complete rejection of the liberal narratives that dominate black culture. He criticizes welfare dependency, blames absentee fathers more than systemic racism, and believes that the black community's biggest enemy isn't white supremacy, but its own dysfunction. This messaging has earned him a following among black conservatives and even some white conservatives who see him as a truth-teller willing to break the mold. But is Charleston White really conservative, or is he just a contrarian? That's the question, because while he echoes right-wing talking points, he's also unpredictable. He calls out racist conservatives just as much as he calls out liberal activists. He mocks both sides of the aisle, leaving people guessing about where he truly stands. But one thing is clear. His brand of truth-telling is shaking up the status quo. So let's be real about what's going on here. Joe Budden is ducking real conversations. Dr. Umar is ducking accountability. And Charleston White, well, he's doing what he does best, exposing the nonsense. Love him or hate him, the man is saying what needs to be said. And if you don't like it, well, maybe that says more about you than it does about him. Now listen, if you want real independent journalism, if you want the truth, if you want people who aren't afraid to call out the BS, then you need to support platforms like this. Subscribe, hit the button, because the mainstream, they're gonna keep feeding you the same tired narratives, the same safe conversations. And we're not about that. We're about the real, unfiltered, unapologetic truth. So if that's what you're here for, you know what to do. Let's keep this thing going. Let's keep these conversations alive. And let's make sure the people who need to be held accountable stay accountable.